Welcome to Plate Story Podcast. I'm Trista Polo from iwokeupawesome.com, and I am your host. In this podcast, we hear the fascinating stories behind vanity plates all around the country. Today's guest is Bruce from Wappingers Falls, New York. His license plate is BXLUVSWX, and it's not what you think. Here's a hint. You may see him on the road, or you may see him up in the sky. Let's hear his story. Hey, Bruce, welcome to Plate Story Podcast.
Well, thank you very much. It's good to be here.
Yeah, now I'm here with Bruce. He is a Hudson Valley resident, and his plate is very intriguing. It's BXLUVSWX. And I actually saw it at a party that we were both in attendance last weekend. And, you know, when I read it, I'm like, who's WX? Because probably BX, I knew your first name, that's Bruce, but who do you love? Who's WX? So, Bruce, tell us about your plate.
WX is an abbreviation for weather. WX is used in various areas to determine what weather would be as an abbreviation. It's been around a long time. So the plate is BX, me, loves weather.
So Bruce loves the weather.
Yes.
Well, that's definitely not what I would have guessed it meant. So tell us why you chose that plate. What's the story behind it?
Okay, well, it's true. Most people don't think that's what it means. They think it's my name and somebody I'm either married to, associated with, or related to. So it gets an interesting number of questions. It stems from two things. First, I did a lot of work with meteorology when I was younger, either from a study standpoint in terms of taking courses or from a amateur standpoint in terms of dealing with the weather. And I'm also a pilot, and of course, one of the things that you have to be concerned about a lot is dealing with the weather. So it fits in both categories, I guess.
Now, you're not a meteorologist professionally. You're actually in the mortgage industry, right?
Yes, I'm a reverse mortgage specialist. That's what I do for a living.
Awesome. So why didn't you pursue meteorology as a profession? Is there a reason that you went another way?
No, not necessarily. I was doing it as courses along with my other courses. My profession for myself was I was a school teacher and administrator. So for over 30 years. So this is a second career for me.
Oh wow! Okay, great. And you said you're also a pilot. Do you do that professionally or recreationally?
No, recreation. I have a commercial certificate, but I fly recreationally, and I do flights for various nonprofit organizations, angel flights, animal rescues, those type of things. So, but I don't fly professionally. No.
Okay, got it. So you fly for fun and to get yourself places, and then also to help out some nonprofits. I'd love to hear a little more about that. Can you tell me a little more about the organizations you support with flying?
Yeah, well, basically, the nonprofits are Patient Airless Services. There's Angel Flight Northeast and Angel Flight East, which deals with taking patients or families to various facilities in which they are getting medical treatment, and they either don't have or can't afford commercial flights, or the patient is not allowed to fly on a commercial aircraft with other people because it's a closed environment. So we help them out with that. And of course, the animal rescues are mostly puppies and kittens and sometimes turtles and sometimes other animals that we rescue. A lot of rescue flights are from kill shelters in the southern and southeastern United States up into the Northeast and these animals are up for adoption at various agencies here in the Northeast, and then for fun.
Yeah, that's wonderful work that you're doing. I can tell you my dog was rescued from a kill shelter. She was brought up by Van and ended up being fostered, and then we adopted her from there. So I definitely have a soft spot for that conversation. But I didn't realize that there were angel flights for patients, their family. I assumed you had to go through your insurance, you had to pay out of pocket, and it could only be done through hospitals. How does that work?
Well, these agencies are online organizations that link patients or families in need of transportation with pilots who are vetted. Sign up with these organizations. You get vetted. I mean, you can't just pick up the phone and say, I'm going to do this. You have to go through a process of, you have to have enough experience, you have to have recency of experience, you have to have certain ratings for some of the organizations require you to be an instrument-rated pilot. You have to have a certain number of hours that you've flown. You have to have an aircraft that's capable of carrying X number of passengers, and the passengers sign. It's wavered. The insurance indemnifies you from the agency that you're flying for. And of course, everything we do is safety oriented more than anything else. Way more than anything else.
Yeah, sure.
We have the right to not fly if we believe that the situation is going to be anything less than safe for both the passengers, the pilots, and the folks on the ground, families.
Sure, absolutely. I mean, certainly that's super important when you're talking about flight, is the safety. My husband, Russell, as you know, is a student pilot. And when he first started, because I know him as a sailor, and I know he tends to sail into the hurricane, I was like, I'm never getting on a plane with you. But the more I hear about what he's learning, it's all about safety. Safety first, safety protocols, safety checklists. I mean, safety first.
Yeah, absolutely. Key, number one issue.
Yeah. Now, because I could imagine this patient transport service being a not very well-known thing, but something that some people could really take advantage of, could you share some of the actual websites where people could go look more into this if they could use that kind of service?
Well, basically, if people search for, just if they search, anybody can go in and search Angel Flight East, Angel Flight Northeast, or patient airlift services. Just go on the internet, Google it, as I say. Just go on, take a look, and you'll find all of these different agencies that work with these nonprofits and provide this service to the voluntary pilots provide the service.
Well, that's great. And thank you so much for all of the support you give through being a pilot, both for rescue animals as well as patients and the other things you do to support the community. Now, we'll ask you for a little advice. If there's anybody listening who would be interested in taking up flying as a pastime or a profession, where would you recommend they start?
At their local airport. Look for an airport that's local to them and see if there's flight instruction given at that field, and then follow up there. There's a group called AOPA, Aircraft Owners and Pilots Association, which has lists and references of flight schools that are available. That's the best place to go. Start local and go from there.
That's great.
Now, for young people who are considering do it as a career, this is probably the best time in the last 50 years to consider becoming a commercial pilot, airline, if you want to go into airline work, because the need for crew is skyrocketing right now, because
really
crew is aging out and the number of aircraft that are flying are increased, and there's a lot of opportunity. If I was younger, I'd do it, but in fact, right now I'm above the age of retirement for airline pilots, so that world is behind me. But definitely, if anybody's young, people thinking about doing it, give it a try. This is the time to do it.
That's great advice. I didn't realize there was a shortage of pilots. I have a couple of friends whose sons have gone to flight school to be commercial pilots, so they must have been aware of that need, but it's great that you're putting that out there as an opportunity.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah, thank you for that. Now, you said people definitely ask you about your license plate, that they ask you what it means, and they assume it means that you love a spouse or a family member, etc. What kinds of interactions do you get from your plate?
I find, a couple of times people pull up next to me at a stoplight of all places and knock on their window, lower the window, and they'll say, "I see your license plate. What does it mean?" And I'll explain to them it's totally away outside of what they thought the plate meant.
And you can have that whole conversation at a stoplight?
Really quickly, within 15 seconds. Yeah.
Well, it's funny, the way I approach identifying people for the podcast is certainly people I know, but also I have postcards that I'll put in a door handle. And, if I see one in a parking lot or that kind of thing, it never occurred to me to try and pull up next to someone and knock on my window to get them to talk to me during a stoplight. Although I will admit I have followed a couple of cars to where they were going so that I could catch up to them when they finally did stop. But I might have to start trying to network at stoplights and stop.
Oh, I don't know. It's like stop at your own risk kind of thing. It's like,
yeah, exactly.
And then you take too long, people start beeping their horn behind you and all that kind of stuff. So
yeah, for sure.
So no, it's interesting. It's definitely created a number of instances where people have stopped me and want to know what the plate was about because they never seen anything like it.
Yeah, it's
So
definitely an unusual one for sure.
it's a unique one, that's for sure.
Yeah, definitely a unique plate for sure. So, obviously, in addition to conversations you might have at stoplights, is there anything about having that license plate that has you change the way you behave on the road now that you're a little more visible, a little less anonymous?
No, I don't think so. Other than some people stopping me. No, not really. I'm pretty cautious. I don't mess around on the road, like I used to. And it's just neat to have it. I kind of react to it myself walking up to the car and looking at it and saying, yeah, that's pretty different. I've never
Yeah.
seen anybody with anything close to that. So it's very cool. It's not my only vanity plate, but I have another one on an old car that I restored that
Uh-huh.
has a vanity, on it. So.
Do you want to tell us about that one while we're here?
Well, it's an old '53 Chevy, and the plate is '53 Forever, and it's a car I picked up in a estate sale, and so that sat in somebody's garage for 34 years, and
Wow.
I've had the car about 15, 16 years, and it's been worked on over the years, and that's a restoration car that I've had. So that plate says, 53 for the year, the letter, the number 4, and then the letters EVR. So it's 53 4 EVR. So 53 Forever. So
That's great. And then is that car out on the road as well?
it's off the road. It gets stored during the wintertime. It's off the road right now. It's stored in a garage, and it'll go back out on the road in the spring,
Okay.
and then go off the road in the fall. I don't take it out during the winter. I don't want the salt and anything to get to it.
Yeah, that makes sense. So where would you say you drive most? Where would we see your BXLUVSWX or 53 Forever out on the road?
Hudson Valley, Eastern New York State, Connecticut, Jersey, Pennsylvania. Wherever I go, I'm on the road all the time for my work. They'll see the car running around with the plate.
That's great. So we know that you're off to help someone either with your piloting or your mortgage skills when we see those cars on the road.
Well, thank you. Yep.
Yeah. So you said that you're in reverse mortgages. I'm not sure that everyone knows what that is. Can you expand what makes something a reverse mortgage versus a typical standard mortgage?
Basically, it's a product aimed for the senior population, and it's a mortgage that allows people to take equity in their home and not necessarily have a payment. So, again, that's the elevator speech. But to get details of it, it's an individual by individual basis.
Sure, absolutely. But it's for the specific community of like over 65.
62 and older for the primary borrower, and then you can have people on the loan who are younger than 62, but the primary borrower or borrowers have to be 62.
Because it sounds like it's a little different than like a cash out refinance where you can also access equity in your home.
Right, and that it's very, very different because the primary difference is you're not obligated to make payments on this program.
Oh, that is different.
Yep.
That's very different. Now, Bruce, what are you reading right now?
Oh, boy. You know what? I haven't picked up a novel or a fiction or a nonfiction in a long time. Most of my reading deals with around aviation right now.
Okay.
So it's pretty much...
So if somebody was interested in looking into or getting into piloting, or somebody like my husband who's already pretty deep into it, do you have anything you recommend for their reading, or are you reading mostly safety manuals?
Mostly publications.
Okay.
Articles that are publications, mostly, yeah.
Okay, great. And so what do you attribute your success in life and work to?
Luck.
I did not expect you to say that.
Mostly luck, a little bit of effort, some ability to stick with stuff, and be lucky.
Well, if you attribute your success to luck, then it must be a challenge, or maybe it's a challenge for you to stay motivated. What do you do to stay motivated day to day?
I'm just busy with 1,000 things at the same time.
So your to-do list keeps you showing up so that you can get through it?
Oh, yeah. Sometimes my own to-do list. Sometimes I get handed a to-do list. As you know how that works. Yeah. But yeah, no, just staying busy, keeping going.
Yeah.
Even though I'm of retirement age, I'm nowhere near retiring. That's for sure.
That's great. I mean, yeah, because you said this is a second career for you in the mortgage industry and you're still doing plenty of flying. So you definitely don't look like you're doing your retirement age lying down or sitting.
Yep, absolutely.
And so you're pretty active. What do you do to stay active and stay healthy?
Well, I'm trying to keep myself going. You know, I try and hit the gym a couple of times a week, and I'm dealing with, keeping myself in whatever decent shape or close to the, not close to it that I can. So, trying to stay ahead of the curve.
That's great.
Literally and figuratively.
Absolutely. And the figuratively, one of my other questions is, what do you do to stay mindful? You've got to keep pretty sharp and pretty stress free if you're putting yourself and other people's lives in your hands in a plane. So what do you do to stay mindful and stay focused mentally?
Well, flying is, doing what I do, of course, working with numbers, working with people in terms of meeting folks face to face. Just the need to keep proficiency and then your skill level. It's a lot. It's 80% brain power, and you just have to know your limitations. I think that's really important. You got to know where your limits are, and you have to work up to your limit, and then understand that that's where you have to be.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's great. I've really enjoyed getting to know a little bit more about your plate and the story behind it, and of course the things that you do to support and impact your community in a positive way. What's one question you'd like to ask me? We'll turn the tables.
Well, first, thank you very much. I appreciate it. As you know, how many plates have you exposed? That's my question.
Well, that's a great question. This is a very new podcast for me. So I am right now, at the time of this recording, I am still collecting interviews and preparing for the official launch.
Okay.
So far, I think I have interviewed about 5 plate owners, and I have about 2 or 3 more on the books.
I hope it expands and gets really busy, and if you need any help with it, just let me know. I'll be happy to help out.
Oh, that's so nice. Thank you. And thank you so much for being on my Plate Story podcast today.
My pleasure. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Bruce. Have a great day and drive safe.
You too.
Thanks for joining us on today's episode of Plate Story Podcast. If you would like to nominate the owner of a license plate, including you, visit platestory.com. That's PL8STORY.com and give us the details. I'm Trista Polo from iwokeupawesome.com, wishing you well on the road to your next adventure. Bye-bye now.